Don't miss your chance to win big every week on the Zone. This week on Win Tickets Wednesday, you can win a pair of tickets to Santana and Counting Crows Oneness Tour. That's going to be at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater coming up here soon on August 21st. Listen to the Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win. We will be here on Wednesday. We'll be here every day. We've been here every day for, 2 decades. I don't think we're going to be here every day for 2 more decades, but hey, maybe I got somebody who's on the line who's going to be here in 2 decades. He is our new Ute insider for KSL Sports. You can read all of his stuff at KSLSports.com. He is Steve Bartle, the man with the big old beard and a big old heart. He's going to tell us about the Utes. Is that not right, Steve?
PK, man. That's what we're doing, man. I'm so fired up to be on with you, PK, man. Dude. I'm excited.
Well, that's awesome. Love to have people who love what they do, because normally in my experience in the workforce, if they love what they do, then they're going to do really well. They tend to go hand in hand. And I've spoken to you a little bit. I've spoken to you many times over the years, but I've spoken to you since you got the gig, and you have told me about your fired upness, and I can feel it. I can feel your enthusiasm. So I'm excited for you and excited for our team to get going here. You know, in the sporting world, it's sort of like August and September is the new year if you cover college sports in the NFL and everything, and then the NBA. And now hockey. We got Cole Bagley who'll be joining us, too, to cover hockey. We're excited about that. So the Utes, big things are expected of them this year. I'm going to run a theory by you and get your response to it. We're talking to Frank Dolce the other day, and we've been talking about this for many years. You get these receivers coming in, whether they're recruits or transfers for some bigger name programs, and we've got both situations, returning guys, and we're talking about receivers. Who's going to be that big breakout receiver? They're going to have player XYZ is going to get 1,000 yards in receiving, and it hasn't materialized for a good long while. And we got a couple of new guys here coming in this year. One of them we know from the western side of the U.S., Singer, who had a couple years back a big-time season for the Cats down in Tucson last year, tailed off to like in the 300-yard range, somewhere around 325, I think. And now he's got an opportunity because these guys are playing for pro auditions. But I'm not, of all the times that I've been talking about that, the 1,000-yard receiver, I think I can make a case this year that I'm not so worried about that. I'm more concerned about production. And in the end, literally the end being the end zone, it doesn't matter where the production comes from as long as there is production. And when you got 3-4 guys that can play the tight end position like they've got, they can put multiple guys in there, get deep, get big chunks of yardage. So this year, even though they got the potential, and Singer has a track record, and the other guy does too, I'm not that concerned about it, because I think that, and Bernard's probably as good as they've had as a kid coming out of the backfield catching passes. So I feel comfortable that they can move the ball down the field through the air, even if there isn't a big dominant receiver.
Yeah, PK, I'm with you. Right. You look at those two groups, the wide receiver room and the tight end room, and, you see 3 or 4 guys, at each position that you feel pretty comfortable in, right? Guys that have been at this level, that have done it, that have produced, and you feel comfortable about what you have in those rooms. It wasn't too long ago. I mean, we're talking, you go back to 2018 and 2019, even, and we're talking about 3 or 4 guys total between the two groups that you felt comfortable about, right? And now, you look at each group and you've got 3 or 4 guys that, have done it, and have a bit of a track record, some greater than others. But I'm with you. I think the total of these two groups is as good as it's been. Obviously, they've got to go out this season and validate that. But on paper, and when you go back and you look at what these guys have done, whether it be at Utah or whether it be at UCLA for a Carson Ryan, or Syracuse for Damian Alford, or Arizona and USC for Dorian Singer, you feel good about this group's the track record that they have, the production that they've had, and it's all about getting it all together and getting these two groups to perform at a really high level. And then, you mentioned Mekhi Bernard, and he's going to factor into this. And, the offensive line is going to be key to it all. But, it's and obviously the quarterback position, that goes without saying. But I do feel like just when you look at the totality of these two groups, these are as strong as a unit as we've seen at Utah in quite some time.
Steve Bartle is our new Utah Utes insider for KSL Sports. He's joining us now. I do have, of all the positions specifically, offense, and then we'll switch over to defense. I don't know that I'm not necessarily worried. It's more of a curiosity as far as the backfield and who is going to step forward. Bernard is sort of a jack of all trades. Don't tell him he's a cornerback; he'll punch you. He didn't want to be known as that, and we know what happened a couple years back. But he's a proven commodity. Ask him to block; he can do it. He's been around the block, no pun intended. So he can block because he understands the offense. Smart kid. He's got his degree, all that stuff. No worry there. But when we think of Utah, obviously from the offensive side, we think of a big-time back because they've just been a flood of going to the NFL. And I'm curious who is going to step forward this year. Give us your take.
Yeah, I think that's going to be, it's going to get into the season probably before we get that answer, right? I think, this group, there's a good amount of talent in the group, but obviously there's not the clear-cut workhorse type that's obvious and apparent to us yet. But you go back in recent history, and this type of situation isn't, we've been through it a couple times, and both times, we've had pleasant surprises, right? So you go back to 2019, Zach Moss has an incredible senior season. How in the world does Utah replace Zach Moss? And obviously the 2020 season was what it was, but we saw the emergence of a true freshman in Ty Jordan, who was dynamic. In the few games that he was here with us, and then obviously, unfortunately, the tragedy occurs, and Utah now has to replace a promising star in Ty Jordan. What do they do then in that offseason? They go in, they get TJ Pledger, Chris Curry. And you're looking at those guys as former blue chip prospects, and you feel good about that. But then they bring in a junior college guy, Tavion Thomas, and he's the guy that actually emerged from that group as the big workhorse. And so you're looking at this group as it's currently constructed, right? You've got Mekhi Bernard, who and can count on in all phases of the game. And the X factor here with Mekhi is, he's always played at around 200 pounds, right? Just to kind of fit that more scat back type role. He's added, some weight. He's now pushing 210. We'll see what sort of impact that has on his game. Maybe it allows him to be a little bit more durable and to handle a bigger workload, but we'll see. But he is pushing 210, which is about 10 pounds heavier than what he's played at in years past. So that is something to consider. You've got Jalen Glover, who, it was a struggle for him at times, but he really came on in the second half of the season. It seemed like the game finally started to slow down for him, and I think that's big. You would love to see him, run with a bit more physicality and toughness, at times, and I think that'll be key for him. Another factor for him is, the passing game, and what can he add there? Can he add more of a pass catching element, be more reliable in pass pro? That'll be the key for him. But then there's a couple young guys in the mix that also have some breakout potential here. And it starts with Mike Mitchell, who was a freshman that joined the program last summer. He redshirted last season. Well, he was on the scout team, so he was on the scout team as the running back. It was seemingly every week he did something against the starting defense in practice that just created a lot of confidence in his future and his ability. He's gotten into the off season and he's put on a good amount of weight. Last I checked with him, he was at about 217 pounds. So he's the type that you look at that, you go back and watch his film from high school. He's definitely a workhorse type of back. It's just, as a young guy, there's a lot you got to learn in a short amount of time, even at that running back position. And so where is he at with understanding his assignments, understanding, what he needs to do if they change the play and that sort of stuff. So that's going to be the key for him. And then a couple other guys, Dijon Stanley, he's going to be a dynamic change of pace. He's incredible speed. That's going to be a weapon that Utah utilizes quite a bit, is his speed, and we'll see some different things with him and some different looks. And then, there's another guy, Hunter Andrews, who they actually brought in as a linebacker in this most recent signing class. But he actually played running back in high school, all through high school. He was the MVP at Magnolia High School in his region. He's been productive. I think he ran for almost 2,500 yards the last 2 seasons. He's a bigger kid, too, at 6'3", 220. And so what kind of element can he add? Can he, hit the ground running, for lack of a better phrase there?
I like it.
And I think, and I think so. Again, Utah's got, a good collection of talent here. And these guys are going to battle. And, right now it seems Mekhi Bernard has a firm grasp on the RB1 spot, but these guys are going to push him, and we'll get into the season. We'll see who actually emerges, as that workhorse type.
Steve Bartle, new Utah Utes insider for KSL Sports, joining us. And I guess the other offensive question I'm intrigued, probably has my most intrigue actually, is who is going to be listed as backup quarterback. I'm wondering when the depth chart comes out the week of the season opener if they don't have an or. Obviously Cam's the starter. We understand that. If they're going to go maybe at least one or, if not 2 ors, to keep us guessing. What do you think?
I am all for the backup mind games, right? Just sending mixed messages with the backup. Who's it going to be? It'll be interesting, right? So Brandon Rose has been here the longest. He should have the deepest understanding of the playbook and the best ability to execute the offense as Andy Lugg likes it. And so you kind of look at him to you hope that he can step up and emerge given the time that he's had in the program. You've got a former 5-star talent in Sam Heward. Where is he at? But he's only been here since June. Where is he at in terms of his acclimation with the offense and his understanding? There's just a lot of intricacies with the quarterback position that he's got to learn in a quick amount of time. Coach Ludwig raved about his football IQ and acumen, last Monday in terms of his ability to explain things on a whiteboard. But you don't play football on a whiteboard. You got to take it onto the field and execute there, and that'll be the process for him. And then, with Isaac Wilson, obviously a tremendous talent. We watched him at Corner Canyon the last 2 seasons, ultimately lead the Chargers to a state championship last year. And his talent. But for every freshman, right, it's a big change going from high school to college, just the level of athleticism, the level of talent that you're competing against, the level of scheme and preparation required is also a big drastic change as well. And so that's going to be a process for him. We saw a lot of good things in spring ball, but where is he at in terms of all of that? Because, once you get into fall camp and into the season, opponents don't care that you were, a highly talented recruit. You gotta go out and execute and make good decisions. And so, each of these guys have reasons and reasonings to potentially win the job. I lean towards that being, one of Brandon Rose or Sam Heward right now, just based on the experience that Heward gained last year and the time that Rose has in the program. But what we saw with Isaac Wilson during the spring, can he continue that? That's all going to be up to him and his willingness to put in the work and the study time and all of that. Because again, that is a process. But I think it's going to be one of Brandon Rose or Heward right now with Isaac pushing as well.
Steve Bartle, new Utah Utes insider for KSL Sports, joining us. I can remember, Steve, when the Utes first got in the conference. Kalani Sitake was D coordinator, right? And yeah. I think it was the 2013 season. You'll see where I'm going with this in a second here. They're playing the Sun Devils at Rice Eccles, and they're up by 10 or 11 points going into the fourth quarter, right? They got the game. Time is on their side, scoring time. Trevor Riley, Kalani broke this down for me in detail once after a practice. He said we had to take him out because he was just gassed, right? So we had to take him out for 10 minutes of real time. And the Devils knew, and Riley played in the NFL, so he's a good player. They knew that Riley came out, and I don't remember who the backup is. And he said the Sun Devils just went right at the backup and just went, boom, right down the field. They ran it like 5 plays in a row, and they scored real quick. And all of a sudden, time wasn't on Utah's side because now the thing had got down to a one-possession game. And the Devils came back, and then they got the ball on a punt and scored, and I think they won 2019. You probably remember that. And Kalani's point was they just didn't have the depth to compete because they're just barely getting started up front as far as their recruiting. Now you look at this team up front, and it's like, man, if they wanted to, they could substitute guys out every play. I mean, they got so many dudes, and you don't even think of Logan Fano, who was a big-time recruit because he got hurt early last year. I can't remember, I think Oregon State or something. Now he's back, and you look at this. I don't know how they do it, but it just seems like every year they've got 9 guys returning up front. How do they do that? Doesn't make any sense to me.
It's man, that's just the. It's a credit to Lewis Powell, first and foremost. It's a credit to Luther Ellis, who's come in and added to the recruiting. It's just a point of focus for Utah's recruiting in the trenches, right? Because that's where a lot of the talent in the state and, in a lot of their pipeline states that they recruit to, that's just, that they just tend to do really well on the recruiting trail. So it's always a point of focus in their recruiting. And you look at the team this year, right? And obviously they returned Connor O'Toole and Van Fillinger. Logan Fano will be back this season as well, which is just, it's crazy that, he can suffer an ACL injury and, in September, October, whenever that game was played. And now he's back. He's full go in fall camp. It's crazy, some of the recoveries of these guys. But he's going to be in there. And then, they went out and, they added one of the top freshmen in the state in Cash Dillon, who's come in, made a good impression through summer workouts in terms of just where he's at physically. Can he potentially be a guy that, can add his name to the mix as a true freshman? We'll see. But there's no pressure because there's guys in front of them. They went into the transfer portal and brought in John Henry Daly from BYU, Paul Fitzgerald, who had 8 sacks last year from Utah State. And, it's just they have so much depth along the trenches. It's such a point of focus for them. You look at the interior and you get guys that stick around and hang in the program for 3-4 years. Junior Tafuna, Samote Pepa, Aliki Bamahi have been here for years. And that allows them to recruit behind them and build the depth. And that's where you get a Keanu Tanavasa who just works his tail off and climbs the depth chart and ultimately wins a starting job last year. You bring in another guy, welcome him home from his mission in Dallas Valkalahi. It's just the MO of Utah and where they butter their bread, on the recruiting trail is, in the trenches and on the defensive line specifically. They just have that thing humming in terms of, their recruiting and then their development in the program, at defensive end and at defensive tackle with the coaches that they have there. So, it's always going to be prominent. The defensive line is always going to be a prominent part and aspect of Utah football. And it's just, they just have options. And it's so important to have those options, right? Not only in terms of insurance and depth, but it gives you versatility and the ability to create different matchups. And when you go into, a power conference like the Pac-12 or like the Big 12, you're going to face a lot of programs that can do different things and do different things. And to have that sort of versatility with the amount of depth that they have is huge, especially when you're talking about Utah competing for a championship. You need that insurance and you need that versatility to match up. So it's key for Utah. They always make it a point of emphasis in their recruiting, and they just do a good job there.
And then on the defensive backfield, we've got, they lost the 2 safeties to the NFL. good luck to them. But you got Richie,
Yeah.
you got Johnson, you got Vaughn, you got Snowden, you got Hall. All these dudes played last year, and they maybe do some shuffling around. And I know they got a couple of transfers coming in, but I mean they got enough base experience that it's not like it was going after 2019 when they lost a bunch of guys
Right.
in the NFL. They've got some guys who've been on the field, and I think they'll be fine there.
Yeah, I'm with you, PK. Like it's always tough to replace guys that move on to the NFL, right? You're not going to be what you were with them, at least initially. And part of it too is just experiences going through mistakes and learning from mistakes, right? And that's going to be a key for some of these guys. Fortunately, some of these guys gained experience. Smith Snowden, as you mentioned, he's going to be a fun player to watch this year. Smith Snowden, I think him and Teo Johnson will be a lot of fun. And then Nate Ritchie, we saw what he did in 2020. And it sounds like, last year was a bit of a struggle. He got back and he was just dealing with a nagging injury that kind of hindered him. And it sounds like, he's finally starting to get those, his instincts back is what it sounds like. And so he's starting to kind of create separation there at that strong safety spot. And that'll be key for Utah because, that strong safety position is so important to, what they do and all of that. And then the depth with Jonathan Hall and Alakai Gilman, who came in from Stanford. And Utah's going to need some guys to step up and to emerge. To solidify the depth at cornerback, but you feel really good about what they have in Vaughn and Snowden and Kenneth Johnson, who really showed us some good things in spring. He's coming off his best season at Georgia Tech as well. So, but they're going to need some guys to emerge just to solidify the depth behind those frontline guys.
All right, that's Steve Bartle. He is our new Utah Utes insider for KSL Sports. We will be talking to him throughout the season. He'll have all the information that you need to know. Nobody knows the Utes more than Mr. Bartle. We thank you for your time, and we'll be talking to you soon.
PK, appreciate you, brother.
All right, there you go. Steve Bartle, we just hired him. Last week was his first week. He is our new Utah Utes insider for KSL Sports. Stay with us. We will be talking Utes and obviously Cougars and Aggies and all that stuff as we move into the second week of training camp is underway for everybody in the state and throughout the sport. College football right around the corner with games coming. We got some Olympics we got to talk about. That was really, really fun yesterday watching the Olympics. It was fun so far. And we will get to that next. Stay with us. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.